We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost in all of college football YouTube channels. Please hit the $, make a donation, put a comment, and we'll get you a super chat as fast as I possibly can get. Welcome, one and all, everybody. Welcome into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. Wow, this is an end of an incredible week. This is the last day of an incredible month in college football. Holy smokes. We've had to cover it all here at Peek Around the Corner because this is college football's Peek Around the Corner. And man, oh man, it's been a lot of work to keep up. I have spent a whole lot of time off camera, on camera. I want to thank you all for being with us through the month of May in 2024. Now, I know I've said some things, I've reported some things this week that some of you are scratching your head and going, Well, and there is a whole lot of very, 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 very smart people that I've had conversations with off the record, off camera, in my DMs on X, phone calls, a lot of smart people who say, Greg, you got it wrong. Great. Be careful. Great. But then there's a whole lot of people who cannot be named who are saying, that what you have reported is what is happening on the ground right now. What is that phrase? Kinetic energy? Is that a phrase? Kinetic energy? Kinetic? I think that's correct. Kinetic energy. You know, it's sort of like a phrase for some military action. There is kinetic energy on the ground. And right now it does not involve the SEC having a whole lot of third-party interest talks with Clemson and Florida State. Could it happen? Yes. Could this scenario happen where the SEC eats first, second, third, and fourth? Could the scenario happen where Florida State and Clemson gets a settlement deal and here comes the SEC swooping in, saying, Florida State, we need to talk. Clemson, we need to talk. Could there be a scenario where Florida State says, we'll forget all the bad blood between ourselves and ESPN? Could Clemson say, whoa, we always thought we were an SEC school? Yes, all that is possible. And if it happens, if we stick to our guns here, peek around the corner, and if that all happens, we'll take the L. However, the kinetic energy, and I don't even know if that is even a word. And if it is a word, I don't even know if I'm using it correctly. The energy, the talk, the discussions, going to certain locations, people with Big Ten interest, people with Clemson interest, people with Florida State interest are talking. And we're not getting any of that anywhere else. Clemson today is speeding up the pace of play. They're attempting to speed up the pace of play. We call it, and I know Jeff Olson is in the chat room, a good friend of mine. Us Smacks, my guys, we used to gamble, we used to play some cards. We still do. We'll do it in the future once we get a little bit older and our lives settle down. But anyways, we used to play, and I've told you the story before. I've told you the story before, but there was a person who used to play with us way back. And every single time that he rushed the bid, he had a great hand. And what I'm talking about is we could be playing AC Doocy. We could be playing 7-card stud. Whatever the game is. And the gentleman would look at his cards. And I'll just give you the name. The guy's name was Pat Mountain. He would look at his cards. And anytime he would get up and look from his cards and say, okay, whose bid is it? Whose bid is it? Whose bet is it? Whose bid is it? We all knew exactly that he had a good hand. At that moment, all of us knew he had a good hand. Now, Clemson is rushing the bid. They're rushing the pace of play. And I think it's because a couple reasons. One, because I think they believe they have a very good hand, or at least a good enough hand, or at least they have some doubt in the ACC's mind that maybe, just maybe, you need to make sure, ACC, you need to make sure that there is not a ruling made on the grant of rights. You see, Clemson has filed a motion for a partial summary, for a partial decision, ruling, resolution on the grant of rights in Pickens County. A lot of it is redacted. We're still going to go through it. So if you don't want to spend time with us to peek around the corner today, going through, it's just an 18-pager. It's going to take a very short time. Again, a lot of it is redacted. We can't see it because the motion has to do with the ACC ESPN media agreement. There's language that Clemson says is plainly in there that basically says, once we are not a member institution of the conference, you, ACC, no longer own our media rights. Your ACC GOR, your grant of rights is limited in scope because of the language that is clearly laid out in the ACC ESPN media agreement. This is Clemson's argument. This is their sole argument. And now they're pushing for a partial summary in Pickens County. And I believe, I may have this wrong, but I believe the date of July 12th is percolating. I believe they're shooting for a hearing on July 12th. They're picking up the pace. They're rushing the bid. They're putting pressure on the ACC to go to the negotiation table. Clemson is feeling good about themselves. We said it for I don't know how many months. We kept saying, Clemson's going to pull the trigger. Clemson's going to pull the trigger. Why, Greg? Why do you think they're going to pull the trigger? Why do you think they're going to go in the courts? Because they've gotten positive third-party feedback. And now, as we've reported to you this week, there's been a lot of ins and outs. There's been a lot of talk. There's been a certain location in the state of Ohio. There's been some stuff going on. Not first-party talks. No offer. No options. Nothing on paper. Nothing been recorded. Find out. Sure, they can appeal. They can appeal the ruling. It's still going to go in Mecklenburg County Court. Blah, blah, blah. But does the ACC really want to find out what happens? Look, we believe here at Peek Around the Corner. We have reasons to believe. We reported to you. We've given you the peek. Florida State and Clemson are willing to deal. They're willing to make a deal. They're willing to make a deal. Clemson is willing to make a deal before this summary ruling motion is figured out. Does ACC want to know the answer of Judge Gravely in Pickens County? We shall find out. Kerry Gold knows just saying no to the SEC and Stanky just because he says stuff don't make it so. Thank you, Kerry Gold knows. Thank you so much for your super chat. I do appreciate your continued generosity to this channel, helping us keep the lights on, making sure that we can do this every single day. Now, a lot of people are saying, Greg, the people you talk to, they may be correct, but at the end of the day, it's still not going to happen. It's still not going to be Florida State and Clemson to the Big Ten. Still not going to happen. We see a lot of reports out there saying, I still see, in fact, I should have made note of it. There's still a major publication out there that reported yesterday. The Big Ten has never invited a school to the conference that was not AAU. It was a major publication. I forgot which one it is. I'll go back and take a look and show it in the next live show. That is completely false. I've often bring up the example of Michigan State not being an AAU member when they were invited in the Big Ten. Ohio State, of course, it was a long, long time ago, but they were not AAU when they were invited and joined the Big Ten. The Big Ten has had lots of talks with non-AAU schools in the past. It didn't happen, but they had long talks. Notre Dame, the Big Ten did research on grabbing 5 or 6 schools at one time. One time. It was Texas A&M, it was Oklahoma, it was Kansas, Iowa State, but Oklahoma was not AAU, and the Big Ten could not make it work financially at that time. If you want to Google that, go Omaha Herald, Big Ten exploring 6 teams. That was way back in the 2000s, whatever. Jim Delaney said, AAU first, but not only. Kevin Warren said it's not a requirement. Reporters keep telling you it's not a requirement. People keep saying, no, it is. It's not. What you need to be to get the votes from the Big Ten presidents is you need to be a healthy, growing, valuable research university. And most of those are AAU. But there are schools out there that are not AAU that have high caliber research universities. And a lot of schools have the goal to become AAU. Let me show you something. Clemson has their own plan. And if you don't think this is part of the talks that Clemson has had in third-party talks with the SEC and especially the Big Ten, you're kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself. Double research expenditures. This is Clemson's goal. Double research expenditures by 2035. Position for AAU membership. Initiative number 1. Build an AAU-aligned faculty that leverages existing and emerging research strength and addresses societal needs. And then there's key actions. Implement cluster hiring in targeted research areas. Genetics, human genetics, personalized medicine, human performance. Increase instructional tenure track faculty by 20% in the next 5 years. Increase the number of National Academy or similarly credentialed recognized faculty. Align all hires with the 6 broad university thrust. AI, data science, cyber security, human resilience, community advancement, education, energy, transportation, advanced manufacturing, sustainability. Expand PhD production by increasing the PhD faculty ratio. All these to get to the metrics that a private club, remember, AAU is a private organization. Initiative 2, create world-class research infrastructure. They actually give real numbers here. Increase total research space from 995,500 to 1,400,000 square feet by 2028. 1,700,000 square feet by 2035. They're putting exact numbers on there. They're putting exact numbers. They're showcasing this. Because remember, the SEC is attractive to big research, growing research universities. They are. Missouri was one of them. Texas A&M is a huge one. Texas is a huge one. Oklahoma does more research development than Nebraska. Align new space additions plus renovations with the cluster hiring strategy. On and on and on and on. Initiative 3, leverage innovation, campuses, and partnership. Invest in strategic partnerships, key health partners, and new ones to grow our impact and preeminence. So I'm just going to show you, look, it's very difficult right now to see, Clemson is a Big Ten university. It was very difficult for people to grasp Nebraska at the time. Even though they were AAU, people knew that Nebraska was at the lowest rung of the Big Ten ladder. It was very difficult for people to say the Big Ten presidents are going to vote for Oregon. Remember, we had people saying that Oregon was never going to get invited to the Big Ten. We had a guy showing charts that said that Oregon would be 10th or 11th on the Big Ten presidents list. Remember, there's a guy out there who had to block hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Oregon Duck fans because he told them they were crazy because they were listening to the fat guy from Minnesota. There's a whole lot that goes into this. But the number one thing that is going into this for Clemson, besides the growing research university, besides an incredible fan base, the incredible value that they would bring to the Big Ten and Fox Sports, there's another big, significant piece to Clemson. And that is their ability to become available when the time comes. Because the Big Ten is going to be rushing in. The Big Ten is going to rush in. They're going to try to quickly set up a meeting with Clemson. They're going to quickly try to set up a meeting with Florida State. If the SEC swoops in, the Big Ten is going to have a big battle on their hands. No question about it. But the SEC's interest right now is definitely elsewhere. They want the two big states, two big new footprints to add to the SEC to attract international students. The SEC wants to increase their value looking in a different direction. Now, maybe they eat all four. Maybe they get to eat first, second, third, and fourth. But I'm telling you, right now, the kinetic energy, the energy is Florida State and Clemson, Big Ten. That is the chalk. Clemson has gone in. They've pushed their chips in Pickens County, trying to press the ACC to start negotiations. We're going to take a look at that right now. I want to thank everybody for coming on in. Ryan Thomas, multiple games of dominoes being set up all throughout the aisles and rows of the PATC Theater, which is called Holy Smokes. Who gets on the stage may depend on which dominoes fall. Well, Ryan Thomas, you're correct. As always, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity once again. But there's only two schools on the stage right now. On May 29th, we had to pull everybody else off. I'm sorry, May 28th. We had to pull everybody off. Everybody had to come off the stage. No, that was on May 23rd. I'm sorry. That was all the way back at May 23rd. We had to pull everybody off the stage. Because we were told certain stuff that we have been reporting since then. The advantages that Clemson and Florida State has of being the only two, being able to really have meaningful third-party discussions, it is starting to take hold on where the shape of this is going. I need to say thank you for everybody coming on in. We're going to go through the court case real quick. I see people are giving words here. Somebody is in the house. DP, Chris Kenny. Murphy said North Carolina schools and Virginia schools. I heard that as well. It's interesting. It's interesting to speculate on that. I did hear that. You know, it might be it for right now, and we put the new odds up on May 29th. Right now it's May 31st. Right now we have it North Carolina, Virginia to the SEC, Florida State and Clemson to the Big Ten. And could it be? We all know the landscape, right? The Board of Governors, it's going to be a minefield. I got people like Steve, Mr. Bearcat, Cincinnati Bearcat is absolutely correct when he says it's going to be very difficult to navigate the state of Virginia, the state of North Carolina, maybe the SEC, maybe, this is speculation. No one has told me this. Maybe, everybody relax. Maybe one of the reasons why the SEC, the perception out there right now is that they're not going to rush in when Florida State and Clemson become available, and they're going to be the first ones that do, is because maybe they have to hold back to make sure that they can get their first target of North Carolina and Virginia, and that may have to include North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, or North Carolina State or Duke, or whatever. It could be. I haven't been told. What I have been told, and like beaten down, and is the SEC wants the state of North Carolina and Virginia above all else. This. And I know, it's hard. I get it. You know, even for me who are on these phone calls, for me, it's even sometimes difficult to kind of SEC, Florida State, Clemson, national champion football, big time brand. I get all that. I get all that. But the SEC wants to increase their footprint. They want those two big states. That's what they're going for. And I have reasons to be convinced that not just Pete Thamel or Brett McMurphy, who have said this out in public, I think everybody is being told this, but there are access game. People don't want to lose their access, whatever. When I'm given the okay, I just blurt it out. I tell you guys as quick as possible. There is I've had so many discussions with the people in the PATC community who have given me so many good reasons why the SEC will go after Florida State and Clemson before North Carolina and Virginia become available. I think all of you bring up I don't. We have a gentleman, Auburn Tiger, Mr. Auburn Tiger, who called. All of you are absolutely correct in everything you say. And you say it a lot better than I can say it. But all I can tell you is, man, people are absolutely convinced that the SEC is going to wait to get into North Carolina, Virginia. They want all their chips in that spot. They've circled the wagons. Now, this has been how it's been for months, but I've really never separated Clemson from the SEC before. I've never said that. I've always said Clemson to the SEC with like a North Carolina, Virginia. Not right now. Not right now. When Brett McMurphy says the SEC has no interest in Clemson right now, that is what we're being told. And we're not being told that by anybody he's talking to. And we knew this. We were told this on May 23rd. That's why we changed everything on May 23rd. That was 8 days ago. So, anyways, great comment, Chris Kenny. It's something, I think it's something that everybody's going to have to keep an eye on. What does this exactly mean for North Carolina State and Virginia Tech? Is it going to be impossible for the SEC to navigate? Would they take all four? Or would Duke squeeze in there? But it is those states that the SEC wants. Expedition Greg is in the house. Cornelius Green, Chief fan, is here. It was Mandel at the Athletic. Christopher Shannon, D5 Terps, DP is in the house. Dave Miter is in the house. Brandon Strickland is here. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. Numbskull News. They're going to build the Hulk. Thank you, Numbskull News. I appreciate you coming on in. Daniel is here. Check it out. Is here. Holy smokes. Roman Maroney is in the house. Opie is here. I think Brett McMurphy meant the Tar Heels and the Cavaliers as schools. When this pans out, the SEC did exactly what they said they would do. So AAU and basketball and big football schools, no AAU, how things have changed. I just think part of this is the conferences, when they have an opportunity, is to expand their bandwidth, and that's how they expand the value of the conference. I think you can see that in the Big 12, you can see that in the Big 10, and the SEC has their own way of doing it. They don't want, I know, I agree, they don't want the Big 10 in the Southeast, but they don't want the Big 10 in North Carolina and Virginia. They don't want that. Dan Montecastle is in the house. MGC Sooner is here. I think it's okay if Genetics is here. I think he should be here. I think Genetics should watch every program. Old Dad is in the house. Okay, LFG, like 48, appreciate for coming on in. Vox Quindardo is in the house. Appreciate it. Okay, let's get to it. We're just working on one big story today. Clemson filed a motion in Pickens County. This is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big one. They're rushing the bid. They're rushing the bid. This is what Matt Baker, before we get into the document, Matt Baker, the Tampa Bay Times, the latest on Florida State, ACC, and Clemson's lawsuit. Clemson is trying to speed up its case against the ACC in South Carolina. Before I do that, I do apologize. Michael Monk, thank you so much for your super chat. I just saw it. I apologize, Mr. Mountaineer. Tampering? More lawsuits? I don't know what that means. I don't know. What was I talking about when you put that? I apologize, Michael Monk. That is a very generous donation. Great super chat. Thank you so much, but I don't know what that means. Are you talking about third-party talks? That's not tampering. There's no first-party talks going on. Just that people who have interest, who hold interest of certain conferences, talking with people who have interest of a certain university. Michael Monk, I do apologize for not knowing what that means. Put it in the chat what you mean by that question. Thank you so much, though, for your generosity. I appreciate it. Matt Baker, the latest on Florida State ACC Clemson lawsuit. Clemson is trying to speed up its case against the ACC in South Carolina. This is the latest. Again, Matt Baker. Clemson is trying to speed up one key part of its suit. One key part. It is the part. It is, to me, it is the whole thing. Clemson is trying to speed up the one key part of its suit against the ACC in South Carolina. The school filed a motion of partial summary judgment to see who owns the TV rights to Clemson games after the Tigers leave the ACC. Again, I know a lot of people theorize that Clemson, or especially Florida State, is going to say, we're out of here. We're gone. We're filing our notice of withdrawal. Bye-bye ACC. We've been told it's quite the opposite. Clemson and Florida State are not going to do that. They want a settlement or victory before they go that route. In Clemson, they want a judgment. They want a judgment on the big part of their case. They want it fast. They're pushing for it. And in the process, this could push the ACC to the negotiating table. Clemson argued that the plain, unambiguous language of the ACC's TV contracts with ESPN and a related document, the grant of rights, make it clear that they belong to the school, not the conference. The ACC disagrees. Hundreds of millions of dollars of TV dollars, and practically speaking, the Tigers' attractiveness, yes, to other conferences hinge on this interpretation. You gotta have your own media rights to be attractive to another conference. Another reason why I do not believe that Clemson or Florida State are going to file the notice of withdrawal before they know how and when they can grab their own media rights. I think that's important. I know a lot of you disagree with me, and that's fine. Clemson's argument is nearly impossible to follow. It is impossible, but we're still going to go through it. We're still going to go through it because that's what we do here at Peek Around the Corner. And your host is not too bright. We're going to go through it anyways. Clemson's argument is nearly impossible to follow in Thursday's filing because of heavy redactions to protect the confidentiality of ESPN's contract. One paragraph starts with, in the plainest terms possible, and then it's followed by 13 blacked out lines. Summary judgment can allow courts to interpret legal issues without a full trial. Clemson seeks, here it is, July 12th. Clemson seeks a hearing on the issue on or before July 12th. It doesn't say on, but it should say on. So Clemson, they want a partial summary. They want a summary judgment. And they want to get this cranked up. They want to have the hearing set real soon, baby. It's May 31st. On or before July 12th, it's 6 weeks. They want to have a hearing done within the next 6 weeks. And then a ruling on the... You could have a ruling by Judge Gravely. I think that's his name. I apologize if I got it wrong. Judge Gravely, Pickens County. Clemson could have a summary judgment ruling before August 15th, which is the date that you need to file a notice of withdrawal per the ACC bylaws to get out of the conference by July 1st, 2025. This is a big deal. Clemson's going all in. Now, again, I understand a lot of people disagree with PATC, and I'm cool with that, baby. This is this is college football Peek Around the Corner channel. We disagree on this channel, and it is beautiful. It is fantastic. And what I'm about to say is some of you are going to shake your head and say, Greg, your cheese have slipped off your cracker. Greg, you are so out of it, I'm not sure that I can even watch this program anymore. I am done. I am finished. But I got to tell you what we are being told because that's what we do here. And I'm just going to let our track record speak for itself. I'm going to tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, and I mean this with all sincerity. This is not, I'm not saying this. This is not clickbait. I don't know. I'm not sure what that word means. It's something to do with you put a title up and you don't really talk about that title, whatever. I'm telling you this. Clemson, Florida State, they are ready to make a deal. And I think this is Clemson just going, all right, okay. We're willing to live or die by this ruling in Pickens County. Are you willing to live or die on this ruling in Pickens County, Mr. Jim Phillips? Not only Mr. Jim Phillips. Not only Mr. Jim Phillips. Not only Mr. Jim Phillips. But Mr. Wake Forest, Mr. Boston College, Mr. Duke, Mr. Everybody. Because if Clemson gets the summary judgment rulings in Pickens County before August 15th. Who has all the leverage now? Oh, I know the ACC will appeal. I get it. They'll continue in Mecklenburg County, but suddenly everybody gets a little bit more nervous. Suddenly the North Carolina Board of Governors is probably going to have a meeting with North Carolina, possibly North Carolina State. Suddenly Miami might get their act straight. Suddenly Virginia Tech might have to be, talk to their attorney general. Suddenly. I mean, Clemson is willing to live or die on what happens here in Pickens County. They believe they're going to get the ruling. They believe they're going to get the edge. They believe, the judge is already, the one action that he's done is say, Clemson's lawyers, they get all 160 plus pages of the ACC ESPN contract. He already made that ruling. He already said, bam, bam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. They got it. They didn't have those documents before. Not before they filed the case in Pickens County. Suddenly they got it right away. ACC, are you willing to bet, to gamble, not on just ACC, but the future of all those other schools? Clemson's got nothing to lose, except for a couple $1 million in lawyer fees. They've got nothing to lose. And there is no offer on the table for Clemson from the SEC of the Big Ten. If somebody's telling you that, it's no way. No way are those legal counsel of the SEC and the Big Ten even letting their not happen. But Clemson's feeling good about themselves. Feeling good about, yes, all this is worth it and more. And they're willing to deal with the ACC. They're willing to write the ACC a check. Let me see. Let's get to the document here. Timing and availability will be the biggest driver. That is what's driving it right now. Absolutely, Ryan Thomas. Absolutely. No question about it. Thank you for your super chat. Michael Monk. Now, you said tampering or more lawsuits. Are the expenditures related to possible tampering or just a bet? I still don't understand. Michael Monk, please give me a call. Or are the expenditures related to possible tampering? I apologize, Mr. Michael Monk. You're being don't give me a super chat. Just let me know in the chat room. You've been incredibly generous to me. I appreciate it. But I'm not able to answer. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's my fault. I'm sure you're explaining it very well. I apologize. Don't just either give me a call later in the show or spell it out in the chat room and I'll get to it. I do apologize. Thank you so much for your generosity. Let's get to the document here. Let's get to the I gotta pop this up more. I gotta make it so people can see it. Holy smokes. Here we go. There we go. State of South Carolina, County of Pickens, Clemson University, the plaintiff, Atlantic Coast Conference, the defendant. Again, this is just 18 pages long. We're going to go right through it. Then we're going to open up the phone lines. Clemson's University notice of hearing in motion for summary judgment on the first cause of action in the amended complaint. And that first cause has to do with the grant of rights. Pursuant to Rule 56, South Carolina Rules of Civil Procedure, plaintiff Clemson University hereby moves for partial summary judgment, granting it a declaratory judgment on the first cause of action set forth in paragraphs 98 to 102 of the amended complaint. This motion is based on the undisputed facts, the plain language of the contracts at issue in the first cause of action in the law of South Carolina, as more fully set forth below in such further briefing and argument as may be submitted to the court prior to or in connection with the hearing of this motion. Clemson hereby request that this court set a hearing upon this motion on or before July 12th, 2024. Within the next 6 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, next 6 weeks, a hearing on a summary judgment. That's what Clemson wants. The statement of the case, Clemson filed. The ACC filed a motion to dismiss. This motion is for summary judgment, is limited to Clemson's first cause of action, seeking to obtain a declaratory judgment a judgment related to the grant of rights agreement as amended between Clemson and the ACC. The true and correct copies which are attached, Exhibit 1A, Exhibit 1B, pursuant to the grant of rights, Clemson and other conference members granted to the ACC all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement. This reference to the ESPN agreement requires that agreement be read together with the grant of rights to determine which rights were granted by Clemson to the ACC and which rights were retained by Clemson. Pursuant to the ACC agreements with ESPN, true and correct copies of which are attached, Exhibit 2A, Exhibit 2B, for filing under seal. We got a bunch of redaction. Now, this is what Clemson's argument has been. You read the pertinent agreements together, Clemson alleges, shows that the only rights Clemson's conveyed to the ACC were the rights to produce and distribute certain games played while Clemson is a member of the ACC. And Clemson did not grant rights to games played if and when Clemson ceases to be a member. Declaratory judgment is based on the plain language of the agreements. Clemson seeks the declaratory judgment based on the plain language of the agreements. On May 3rd, 2024, this court entered an interim confidentiality order pursuant to which the ACC was to produce to Clemson two agreements between the ACC and ESPN, namely the amended reinstated multimedia agreement date, July 21st, and the network also dated July 21st, 2016. Now, I just talked about that, right? right away, this judge in Pickens County entered an interim confidentiality order that the ACC had to produce to Clemson 2 agreements. You read in that as you want. I'm not a lawyer, but you got a judge already saying to the ACC, you got to produce this stuff, man. You got to give this stuff to the Clemson lawyers. Statement of undisputed facts. Clemson has been a member of the ACC since 1953. Since the inception of the ACC, there has been changes to membership, with old members leaving, new members joining. In recent years, Clemson and other conference members granted the ACC media rights to certain home games and certain other games. And the ACC, in turn, negotiated media and network agreements with ESPN on behalf of conference members. Clemson executed the original Atlantic Coast Conference grant of rights in 2013, 2016. Together, these agreements are referred to herein as the grant of rights. Clemson does not dispute the validity or the enforceability of the grant of rights. That is not what Clemson is disputing. The grant of rights specifies the rights were granted to the ACC by Clemson and other members of the ACC. And here it is. This is in the gore. This is the grant of rights. All rights, the rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. The grant of rights further states that the grant of rights pursuant to this paragraph 1 includes, without limitations, the right to produce and distribute all events of such member institution that are subject to the ESPN agreement. Number 7, the ESPN agreement, as used in the grant of rights, refers to a specified multimedia agreements and a network agreement between the ACC and ESPN. And then it goes on previously between 2014, 2016, the ACC had entered in a series of media rights agreement with ESPN. We know about that. There is some redaction. A lot of redaction. Here we go. Redacted. Now, this is the part where it is sealed. The ACC ESPN media agreement, this is all sealed. Clemson is using this in their motion of summary. They want a summary judgment on cause 1. This is what they're using. We can't see it. Look at all this. Clemson is going into that ESPN media agreement. ESPN ACC media agreement. Clemson says there's plain language in there. Clemson wants a ruling. Here is the legal standard. Summary judgment is appropriate when there is no genuine issue of material fact that must be resolved at trial and where the moving party is entitled to judgment as a matter of law. Argument. Based on the plain, unambiguous language of the grant of rights and the ESPN agreements, Clemson is entitled to partial summary judgment granting declaratory relief on the first cause of action, specifically a declaratory judgment affirming that the grant of rights does not include the right to produce and distribute games played by Clemson if and when it ceases to be a member of the ACC. And here it is. Another redaction. This is coming right out of the ACC ESPN media agreement. We can't see it. The judge can, right? Therefore, Clemson's grant of rights, being limited to rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement, does not include games played by a former member. That is, games played if and when Clemson ceases to be a member. So that is the argument. There's a whole bunch of other cases cited. Again, rights include only the rights to games played by Clemson while it is an ACC member. Over and over again. That is the argument that Clemson is making. The rights to games played by Clemson after it leaves the ACC are not necessary to the ACC's performance under the ESPN agreement because redaction. Like the grant of rights, the ESPN agreements granted only certain limited rights, specifically redaction, redaction, redaction. In the plainest terms possible, redaction, 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 redaction. And then it cites a previous case, more redaction, more redaction, redaction. Accordingly, reading the plain language of the grant of rights together with that of the ESPN agreements, as this court must, the scope of the rights granted by Clemson is clear. Clemson granted the ACC only those rights necessary for the conference to perform its contractual obligations. Under the ESPN agreements and ESPN agreements, redaction. So again, I don't know what that language is, but it must, from Clemson's perception, it must say something like, ESPN will continue to distribute ACC content even when the composition of the conference changes, or something like that. Right? I don't know. I can't see it. Never seen it. It's all redacted. But Clemson is saying there's plain language here. If we leave, Clemson says if we leave, the conference can still perform what is necessary under the ESPN agreement, and it is said in the media agreement. The ACC's proposed construction of the regardless, quote-unquote, clause in the grant of rights. Now, I've never seen this before. Let me know in the chat, or let me know in a phone call. We're going to go to phone calls right after we're done with this. We're almost done. We're at page 14 of 18. Not much left. Someone explain this to me. The ACC's proposed construction of the regardless clause in the grant of rights is contrary to the plain language of the agreement and would lead to absurd results. So I guess the ACC is saying regardless of what the media agreement says, we need just to look at the language of the grant of rights. I think that's what it means. And I think Clemson is saying That would be absurd if you don't read the two together. Despite the plain and unambiguous language of the grant of rights and ESPN agreements, the ACC claims that the clause emphasized below means that even if Clemson chooses to depart the conference before the end of the contractual term, the ACC will still own Clemson media rights. And this is stated in the grant of rights here. Each of the member institutions hereby irrevocably and exclusively grants to the conference during the term all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement, regardless of whether such member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. Clemson says there are two fatal problems with this proposed construction. First, it would either render the phrase necessary for conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement completely meaningless, or worse, distort its meaning entirely, thereby violating the basic principles that all words in contract must be given meaning and interpreted in their plain and ordinary sense. A plain reading of the grant of rights shows that the rights granted are only those necessary for the conference to perform its obligations expressly set forth in the ESPN agreements. No other category of rights is mentioned. This necessary for language therefore qualifies the regardless language, not the other way around. The result is that Clemson, regardless of whether it leaves the ACC during the contract term, granted only the rights that the conference needs to perform its obligations to ESPN. The regardless clause unambiguously does not expand the scope of the rights granted beyond those that are necessary for the conference to perform contractual obligations under the ESPN agreements. So in that agreement, that media agreement that we can't see, Clemson perceives that ESPN and the ACC, that nothing is cut away, nothing is diminished. ESPN will continue to distribute ACC content. ACC will still get the same amount of money. Nothing changes. The obligations, nothing changes. If Clemson were to decide to leave the conference. So Clemson should not have to give up all their rights. If they take all their rights with them, their rights, their content is not necessary for ESPN and ACC to fulfill their obligations to each other. That's how I'm reading it. In conclusion, for the foregoing reasons, this court should grant summary judgment to Clemson on the first cause of action set forth in its amended complaint and issue a declaration that the media rights, which Clemson granted to the ACC under the grant of rights, do not include the rights to any games played by Clemson after Clemson ceases to be a member of the ACC, dated yesterday, May 30th, 2024. So there it is. Again, I don't know what the media rights agreement says, but Clemson says it's in plain language. put the puzzle pieces together, Greg. We're all trying to. Grandmaster, it might mean that Clemson and Florida State don't own any rights. Yep, that's what they believe. But I'm trying to figure out exactly how it is written in that media rights agreement. It's all redacted. But there's got to be something in there that says, and I'm going to say this in a very simpleton language. I don't know how else to say it, but something in there must say, if a member should leave, the contract keeps going forward. I don't know, something to the effect of, we're okay. The arrangement stays the same. Maybe there is some composition language. People are always talking about the composition clause. And I've never seen the composition clause. Nobody has ever sent me a document saying composition clause. There's a lot of theories on it. But maybe there is a composition clause in the agreement. And maybe it states that if a school should leave, or if 2 schools should leave, we'll be okay. As long as we have 15 members, 14 members. As long as you can substitute. I don't know. But Clemson is saying there's something in there that makes it so Clemson is not necessary for the conference. That's what I'm trying. Clemson is saying something in that media agreement is saying we are not necessary. And in the grant of rights, you only have our rights if we're necessary. Does that make any sense? Probably not. Okay, I'm going to open up the phone lines. Let it rip. We went through the 18-page document. I do apologize. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TV. Phone lines is now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. I want to get back to
Call from
Numbskull News.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Numbskull News is on the line. The floor is yours, good sir.
What's up, Greg?
It's been a very busy month, sir. Very busy month.
Oh, yeah.
What's up with you?
Well, I sneakily called to offer my condolences. I know all you proud Minnesotans up there. Lovely state, lovely people, great Americans all. But I have to say, let's go Mavericks. That was an amazing Game 5.
Let me say this. Normally, Numbskull News, that loss, losing the series 4-1, normally that would have put me in a fetal position. That would have curled me up, put me in a fetal position. However, my heart is so scarred with losses. It's been cut open so many times. I mean, Minnesota, I love my state, but dang, man, we cannot win nothing. I mean, when it comes to men, professional sports, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in this country. The state of Minnesota, Numbskull News, I'm going to let you have the floor, but you set off something in me. You have set off something in me. The state of Minnesota, we have a franchise in every possible sports you can think of. You name the sport, we have a franchise. We haven't won a men's world championship in any sport since 1991. And we have sport franchises in everything. Soccer, hockey, football. We had an arena football. We got women's hockey. But this is only men's. We're only talking men's here. We got it all. And we can't win anything. We haven't won a Super Bowl. We've never won a Super Bowl. We're 0-4. This is the state of hockey. The state of hockey, we produce the most NHL players, the most college hockey players. We've never won the Stanley Cup. This is the state of losers, and I am the governor. Let's put it that way. Numbskull News, congratulations on the Mavericks. I think you got a good shot. I think you got an even shot at winning the NBA World Championship. Go ahead, sir. Congratulations.
Well, I will say I am bad that the Dallas. I feel bad the Dallas Stars won a damn Stanley Cup. I'm willing to share that halfway. They were the North Stars.
You can keep it. And then the idiots up here. Why are we not called the Minnesota North Stars? Fine, be
I don't
the
know.
Dallas
It's a great
Stars.
name.
You can't take away that name from us. We're the North Stars. The most beautiful hockey uniforms, the most beautiful colors, the most beautiful names, and that is stripped away from us. It's unbelievable. We're the state of hockey and we lost our name. It's just unbelievable. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, that was unfair. That North Stars is a great name.
Yeah.
But on the Clemson business, I love that you're covering this. This is how I get my news, Greg. I don't listen to the mainstream journalists out there. Whatever.
Yeah.
All respect to them, I guess, but not really.
Yeah.
But Clemson doing what they're doing, it's brilliant. But at the same time, can the ACC come to the negotiating table without ESPN? Because by letting Florida State and Clemson, or doing anything that allows Florida State and Clemson to leave, it essentially destroys them, because they lose media rights revenue by doing that, because there's no way ESPN is going to pay them the same amount without Florida State and Clemson. They're going to lose CFP revenue without. They're going to lose that to whoever they go to.
Yeah.
And then you have the ACC network, which they depend on, which is a sinking ship because it's part of your cable packages, and that stuff's going away by cord cutters. But losing Florida State and Clemson, which are two huge ACC network draws, losing them, you're going to lose a ton of money there. And if you're losing all that money with them, and as you've covered, then you got UNC, their board of trustees, they're not happy as it is. So if you're going to tell them they have to re-up for less money, there's no way they're going to do that. And I can't imagine Miami wanting to do that. So if you can't get everybody on board to sign a new deal with ESPN for less money, you're in a lot of trouble. So even with ESPN coming in there wanting, offering to extend them to 2036, but for lower money, they're in trouble. And therefore, I understand what Clemson's trying to do, force a negotiation, but I have a hard time seeing the ACC being able to negotiate without essentially turning their conference into ashes, or the Pac-12.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The problem is we don't know what the media agreement says. We don't. And Clemson seems to be so sure it says what they wanted to say, what they needed to say. Like, what if it's, okay, I know I'm stuttering here. Somebody made a great comment. Okay, here we go. Minnesota Seminoles in the chat room. Doug Rohan said, if the ACC owned the rights to 2036, they would not have needed to add additional members to avoid the competition clause.
True.
What if that media right agreement or that amended media rights agreement, whatever, what if it says, like we are contractually, as long as you have members of 15 or more, more, the contract's going to stay the same, or again, I'm dumbing down the language because I don't have the knowledge of what type of language would be used, but you know what I'm saying, Numbskull News? Like, what if there's something in there that just plainly states everything is kosher, man, everything is cool if you have a certain amount of members, and so now Clemson is saying, we're not necessary. If we're not necessary, therefore we can leave and we have our right. Maybe it's just something simple like that.
But the problem is that won't cover your CFP payout that you'll losing Clemson and Florida State.
But that CFP payout stuff is all new, right? I'm talking
right,
about
but
this,
you're going to lose that.
Sure.
You're going to lose a chunk of it.
Yes. And
ACC network stuff, that media rights isn't going to say, well, you'll keep getting the same amount because that's based off of subscribers, and you will lose subscribers not having Florida State and Clemson.
Now you're talking about why the ACC really can't settle with Clemson.
I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying
it's tough.
I don't think it's going to be really, really difficult because they have to essentially try to get UNC on board. That's number one. They have to get Miami on board with any kind of new restructure without Florida State and Clemson. And if that involves less money, I can't see them doing it. Yeah. I can't see Louisville doing it. There's several member schools that I can't see doing it. And if it's going to be less money than the Big 12, why would you? Because then the perception is that you've lost your big schools and now you're crap. That's going to hurt recruiting.
Yeah. And then it all goes down. Then, a lot of it depends on what that settlement number is. I mean, Brett McMurphy basically said, he said a lot of things that people don't agree with. That's fine. People don't agree with me. That's fine. But, one of the things he said is after Florida State and Clemson, once they do leave, and he says they are leaving, and we absolutely agree with that. I think they're willing to do whatever. But he says there's going to be a Congo line following them. Like there's going to be many more schools leaving. I don't know.
But I think that's a big reason why.
Yeah, and I think you're explaining the reasons why, correct?
Yeah, less money in this environment is not good.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything that you covered with revenue sharing, house case stuff, and all that.
Yeah.
You already are having a tough time going to be able to afford all that, and now you're talking less money for very, very proud membership schools.
Yes.
And I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening. And, another part of that is, because Brett McMurphy also talked about Clemson and Florida State going to the Big Ten. But then he goes on 365 Sports and says, well, the SEC could still play a role there because of ESPN could come in and try to seduce people into the dark side of the SEC,
No.
And I don't know. I always thought that's what's going to happen because ESPN has that card to play as far as protecting their territory from Fox anyway.
And a lot of real intelligent people like yourself have said the same thing, that they will come into the game and they will make a difference and they might swoop in and take Clemson and be very interested, all that. I
think ESPN's already there.
Well,
I think they're already trying to work something out. Third party, of course.
Yeah. And all I can do is push forward what we're being told pretty aggressively and consistently, and there's a pivotal change, and that what's that phrase that I used earlier in the program that might not be a real phrase? Kinetic energy. The kinetic energy is not is not SEC, Florida State, Clemson. It's Big Ten, Clemson, Florida State, and this is why. And I would only can guess. I can only guess. This is why Brett McMurphy has said this. This is why Pete Thamel has said this. SEC's interest, and I understand all the arguments against it, but their interest is definitely in the big state of Virginia and Carolina, regardless of their football brands. That is their interest. So I don't know if SEC is going to be willing to eat 4 times, but that's their main interest is North Carolina, Virginia, and probably the connective tissues with those 2 schools.
And Greg, I have no doubt. You know people that have some inside knowledge.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that in the SEC. But when I just look at the bigger company, which is ESPN,
yeah,
they've lost half their value in the last 10 years. Even though they're still making billions of dollars, they've lost half their value. Their growth year over year has gone from 8% to 1%. They've stagnated.
Yes, sir.
They're in trouble.
Yes,
they're
sir.
in trouble. That's with the layoffs. Plus Disney's in trouble. Now both companies are still very rich.
Yeah.
But they're in trouble though. So this is why they're slashing costs. This is why I don't believe they're going to add 4 schools, because that's ESPN expansion. That's more expenditures. And if you can't get that immediately back from football, then that's going to be a problem. Florida State and Clemson, you can expand with them, and you can make that money back quickly because they have huge football brands that make a lot of money. Now, UNC makes a lot of money, but they don't make it through football, and they don't make near as much money. You can't monetize that as well because they don't have the viewership. They don't have the consistent viewership of Florida State and Clemson. And Virginia is even worse. Virginia Tech is in a hole. NC State does pretty well, but they're more like a Big 12 viewership, not an SEC viewership. That's kind of, I guess that's my logic brain.
You're sell a whole lot of SEC network subs in the state of Virginia and North Carolina, even though those 2 schools don't have the big football brand.
The thing is, you can't base it off of these networks anymore because everything's going to streaming. Everyone's making their plans that hit the exit ramp from the linear. And that's going to heavily affect the ACC network, but also the Big Ten network and the SEC network. Eventually, they'll be on streamers as well. They'll still make money, but it's not going to be your old way of making money through carriage fees. So the monetization is going to have to change with those 2 as well. So all that stuff they're working on, and this is all a lot of unproven ground they're going to with streaming. There's a lot of red flags with it. I think when you have big companies that are having to go to a new type of business model, they're going to be a little bit hesitant to grow too much too quickly and risk getting overextended. This is what happened like in the record industry, things of that nature. When streaming hit them, they lost billions of dollars. And I don't think, and ESPN is definitely, they're already losing money over it. They're not trying to, I don't think they're trying to overextend themselves to really put themselves in a hole, especially if Disney's trying to set them up for a sale later on to someone like Amazon, which I believe they are doing. So it's a lot of stuff I'm hitting.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry. But
yeah, it is.
I'm just not a contrarian to be a butthole, even though I am a butthole.
No, well, you're definitely one of those, but you are making logical sense. And like I said earlier in the program, a lot of really intelligent people are saying, Greg, but
But hey, Greg, you and your sources could be very right. I could have it very wrong, and I might have to do a whole.
I would say this. Even with streaming, even with all of that, markets don't matter as much as they used to, but they still matter. National advertisers still want to advertise in certain places. And demographics, the money that is in those demographics mean a lot. That a lot of us don't talk about that kind of stuff, and that is where North Carolina, Virginia is just where it seems that the SEC wants to make sure they grab. In my opinion, I don't really even believe this is a Clemson, Florida State versus North Carolina and Virginia situation for the SEC. I think this is a North Carolina, Virginia versus North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, Florida State situation because the SEC have circled their wagons around North Carolina. And of all the bluntness that Brett McMurphy did this week and Pete Thamel did months ago and the money perch that we've talked to, Brett McMurphy's most blunt language was he laughed and said the SEC wants North Carolina. I mean, that is not a secret to anybody. So there it is from my perspective.
Well, hey, you know what? I think you make a great case there, Greg.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stand on mine. You stand on yours.
You got it.
I'm likely the one who's wrong here because everyone, no one agrees with me.
Well, a lot of people disagree with me, and they're all they're a lot smarter than I am. That's another thing. A lot of people are making a case better than I'm making a case. But Go Mavericks.
Greg, I got a GED, so you don't have to feel bad.
Well, Go Mavericks. Beat the Celtics. And the Timberwolves, I was about to say something like, we'll meet you in the playoffs next year. I don't know what we're going to do in the offseason. I would love if we traded Towns because he's a great 82-game player. He's not a good 16-game player, the 16 wins that you need in the playoffs. But I don't know what we're going to do. We're on the apron. We don't have money to spend. We're going to be paying the luxury tax. So I don't know what's going to happen, sir. But I appreciate the call.
Well, you have stuff to look forward to. Ant-Man's 22.
Yes.
You're going to be fun.
Yeah.
You got a superstar for the near future.
Yep.
Anyway,
you,
Greg,
sir.
Love your show. Love your show. Have a great show.
Appreciate it.
Have
Love
a good
your
day.
show. Love you, sir.
All right. You have
God
good.
bless. All right. Beautiful. Numbskull News. The evil badger, Ryan Willie. I have a feeling. I got a feeling. Florida State and Clemson will have their exit by August 14th. Minnesota hasn't been wild for a while. Greg, if Wisconsin loses the Axe, I'll give 20 memberships. Holy smokes. Holy smokes.
Call from
Edward, the Auburn Tiger.
Edward, thanks for calling. Can you hold on for a moment, please?
Yes, sir.
I do appreciate it. The evil badger, Ryan Willie, going to give up 20 memberships if Wisconsin loses the Axe. And if Wisconsin wins the Axe again, I will sing on Wisconsin here live at Peek Around the Corner. Thank you so much for your continued generosity, Mr. Ryan Willie, Mr. Hurricane, Rock and Rant. If McMurphy comment about schools in his post about North Carolina and Virginia meant more than one each, then there's no way the SEC would do that, but not for two in Florida. Very good point. Very good point by Rock and Rant. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know. I don't know. I did hear McMurphy say that, but I don't know if it was more of a statement of, the state. I don't know if he meant schools as in plural or schools, or if he meant like North Carolina and Virginia. I don't know what he meant by it. But I do understand. What Rock and Rant is saying about, the second school in Florida. Very valuable. Thank you, Rock and Rant. Thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Mr. Auburn Tiger is on the line. The floor is yours. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great, Greg. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Very busy week.
I imagine so. Listen, another great show. Enjoy everything that you do. Listen, you just about got me about 70% convinced that Florida State and Clemson is going to the Big Ten. And the reason why it doesn't make sense but I believe that, I guess, the hidden thing that I'm seeing just from your reporting and you, like I said, you've never been wrong on this stuff. So, I mean, to go against the Greg Flugard, that's a dangerous thing to do. We might be entering into a new age, Mr. Greg. It could be, if it goes like you're saying, that ESPN and Fox is truly coordinating, which means the SEC and the Big Ten is coordinating. And these are moves that's not about where college football is, but it's about where college football is going. Because these kind of moves make sense for a league, to have more balance on both sides, whether it's like a NFC, AFC. I mean, if the SEC picks up the schools in North Carolina and Virginia, whereas Big Ten gets Clemson and Florida State, those are more balanced leagues football-wise.
Yeah.
Cover more footprint. So that's what it. If to me, if this move is made with the SEC just hanging back, ESPN, this all has to go through ESPN. They still have to sign off on them leaving early with the deal, even though Clemson has this court agreement, this court challenge that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it sounds like to me that we could be already in a new age, that this agreement between Fox and ESPN and Big Ten and SEC is a very serious deal. And just their tone from Sankey's language, there seems to be a lot of coordination. Mm-hmm. And even though we're still having the old mindset of how things were, this big rivalry between the Big Ten and the SEC and Fox and ESPN, really behind closed doors, and probably not even closed doors particularly, there's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of planning for the future. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. These legal counsels of these conferences are not going to. I don't know about the coordination part, to be honest with you. Let me, if you don't mind, let me just take a little bit of time to explain something else that I have not really done a good job of explaining.
Yes, sir.
Numbskull News makes a good, about the interest of ESPN, and that's all important. But I'm going to take this from an SEC perspective because this is what we're being told. Okay? Right or wrong, this is what we're being told, everybody. These schools are competing for students. Enrollment has gone down for many of these schools. They're competing for the money, for the students. When you get the students in the school, that's money. They're competing for students. Part of expansion also is, and it's not talked about very much, but it's if the SEC is going to expand, they're going to want to be in a chance to attract more students to the university. The state of Virginia, the state of North Carolina, the growth, the demographics, the money, the high school students that are looking to go to schools, the number of universities that are in Virginia alone and North Carolina. But these are demographics that the students are looking to go to college. If North Carolina, Virginia those states become SEC country, there's going to be a ripple effect. Those high populated, growing high school, going into college demographic, the money that they have, those two schools, the economic conditions, going into the southeastern schools, that's a part of this. This is a major part of this. It's another reason why North Carolina would be the top target of the Big Ten. But as far as we know, Big Ten can't get to them. The SEC has circled their wagons, right? So, anyways, I just wanted to point that out as well. The demographics, and I'm not ripping on Clemson and Florida State and Tallahassee, Pickens County. I'm I'm just saying the pure demographic money, potential new students that can be attracted to Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, resides in the state of North Carolina and Virginia. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I think I heard you guys talk about that yesterday, and obviously you talked about it a little bit more today. And I was kind of, be honest with you, kind of dumbfounded when I heard that. I went to Auburn. Matter of fact, my son is getting ready to graduate from Auburn. And I'll be honest with you, the last 15, 20 years, Auburn and Alabama has absolutely exploded in size, in tuition, and people going there, and diversity of people going there.
Yeah.
So that's why I really don't understand that concept, because and the South has exploded. So I'm looking at this. The Southern schools have exploded. So I don't know. To me, like, and I'm boots on the ground. My son goes to Auburn and everything.
Yeah.
To me, I think it has more to do with the future of college football, the Power Two, them coordinating. Eventually, they're going to be a league. I do believe silently these things have been happening for some time. Because, I mean, who saw Fox and ESPN working together? Who saw Big Ten, SEC coming together? It's like overnight they just came together. Listen, these leagues are too powerful, too smart, too productive in what they do to just all of a sudden just decide this stuff. This has to be going on for some time. And like I said, I'm an SEC guy. It makes no sense for Florida State and Clemson to be going to the Big Ten. There are a lot of people in SEC country who would love to see those games with Clemson and Florida State from SEC schools. Big time money, big time notoriety, big time everything. It's too much money that could be made off of a move like that. Not happening. That's the only way I can explain it, Greg. Like I said, there's a coordination. But like I said, I did hear y'all say something about the schools, and I'm trying to attract new students. But like I said, I have a son that's at Auburn. When I went there, from where he went, he's going there now. It's exploded. Alabama, same thing, exploded. So that was kind of foreign to me when I heard that.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's exploding with more, with more diverse demographics, right? More international students are coming into the country. So, all right, man. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your point of view. It's fantastic. Mr. Auburn Tiger, please call again, sir.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Ross Dellinger, the Big 12 would distribute $470 million to its schools this year, Commissioner Brett Yormark said. That's a record. Yormark does acknowledge that there will be some dilution of member distribution because of the 4-team expansion.
Call from
Crab Cakes and Football.
Mr. Terrapin, Crab Cakes and Football, thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
Hey, how you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing good. It's the end of a busy week. It's an end of a busy month. So I'm feeling good.
Sorry about that. But now, I was thinking about something. Really, I can't take credit for this because it was actually ACC Network on their YouTube channel that mentioned this earlier today. And I never thought about it, so I figured I'd just ask you about it. Let's say SEC truly is not interested in Clemson and Florida State. They're already trying to get out of the ACC. Their Big 12 is not an option because they make less than what the ACC is making currently. So the only option for them would be the Big 10. Wouldn't they be shooting themselves? Well, wouldn't the opportunity for that Oregon-Washington type of deal to be made because there's no other options for Clemson Florida State at that point, or would they still come in at a full share? Possibly. Now, I don't see Clemson coming in full share, but I do possibly see Florida State coming in at full share.
I don't know. I mean,
there's no competition, so they could just say, "Here's your half share. If you want in, this is what you got to do."
Yeah, and that could happen. Now, a lot of people in the chat room absolutely say, "No way, Florida State, Clemson is going to get a whole share." Maybe CBS, NBC opens up their pocketbook because now they're going to be able to know that they can fill in even better quality games, national advertisers during the season. And maybe Oregon and Washington will get a full share. Clemson, I don't know.
Yeah.
Those discussions really don't even... here's the thing. Clemson and Florida State, while they'll try to get a full share in the SEC and the Big Ten, it ain't going to stop them from coming in. You know, this is not a 6-year decision. This is a 20, 30, 50-year decision. This is a 100-year decision. There is a book out there. I forget the Texas A&M president at the time when Texas A&M decided to move from the Big 12 to the SEC. I think his name was Lofton, something like that. The book is called The 100-Year Decision. He said this decision is about the next 100 years. It's not about if we're going to make, for the next 4 or 5 years. The decision Florida State and Clemson are going to make, go to the SEC, to the Big Ten, make a full share, make 3/4 share, have a full ownership of the Big Ten network, or not have an ownership at all in the SEC network. Whatever the decision they make, you don't want to be a stickler too much, because this is for the next 100 years. This is to get into one of the two biggest, largest, most valuable, biggest exposure conferences you can possibly get into.
True. Because when they mentioned that, I was like, well, I never thought about that, but I also had some of the same thoughts you just said, that in the long run, regardless of however many years, they're eventually going to get the full share anyway, even if they, from day one, I do believe, and go from there. But what do you think, since we're on a Clemson today, today's a good day to talk Clemson for about 2 minutes. What do you think Clemson's record's going to be this year? I've got them pegged at the best 8-3 and their worst 9-4. Or did I say that backwards?
Yeah, I'm with you. I do not have Clemson in my top 3 in the ACC. They're still going to cause a lot of problems on the defensive side of the ball. But until I see Clemson, until I can see them make downfield plays with receivers that they used to have that they don't have anymore, I'm not a believer in the quarterback. I'm not a believer in Klubnik at all. So I got them 9-3 or 8-4. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. I said it backwards. Because the first game's Georgia, then they got App State, and everybody knows App State loves to upset people. Then they get NC State. Everybody's high on NC State this year. And then they got Florida State 2 games later. So the first 5 games, they've got 3 potential losses right there. So, maybe 4 if App State does something. But, that's a long shot, but nonetheless, they do play everybody hard. So, all right, man. I just want to give you a call.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir. Great call.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. If you are new to the channel, if you just joined us, or if you haven't done it yet, please hit the subscribe button subscribe to our channel, then open up those notifications. We can come on live at any time. Today was lunchtime. A few times this week it was at night, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the morning. You got to have those notifications turned on. Subscribe.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole is on the line. Holy smokes. The floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic, sir. How about yourself?
Good. What do you think about this motion for summary judgment from Clemson Tigers and Pickens County? Holy smokes. What are your thoughts, JD?
I wish Florida State was already at that point, but I don't think they've actually received the contract officially from the ACC. So, I had asked a couple of questions online. I think I was asking Doug, and he kind of tempered me down a little bit, which I need that sometimes because every once in a while I get ahead of my skis. And I don't care. Somebody pull me back a little bit, pull me back from the edge before I go too far. I've been right about a lot of things. I think I've been right about 85 to 90% of things, but I still get some things wrong sometimes. So, but no, that was one thing that was stating was that FSU would look for summary judgment, but then I realized they don't even have a contract officially yet. They've seen it, but they don't have possession of it. So I don't see how in the world Judge Cooper could roll on that later in June. It's June starting tomorrow. But so I was leaning that direction, but then I realized how can he? He hadn't even ordered any kind of discovery or presentation of the contract. So I have a quick question. When you were saying earlier, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, when you were saying earlier you don't believe FSU will announce before there's some type of resolution from their rights, have you had those discussions with your FSU contact? You don't necessarily have to say what he said. I'm just going, or say neither confirm nor deny.
I don't think I've had those. I don't think we've had. I don't. I don't have this. I don't have direct discussions with the Florida State Money Perch.
Okay.
And I don't think he's ever written anything. No, it would be more of discussions with people in the industry. I'll just put it at that say that there's no benefit.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's helping me. It's just my own little quest. Like Matt Baker has a quest to get the minutes of the ACC vote. And he's been kind enough to respond to me a time or two whenever that gets brought up. But I'm on a quest for somebody to tamp down the rumors. That there's been a rumor or two that it would come before June 30th, but I don't know, but there's a belief that there would be announcements this summer. Now, maybe it's based upon what Clemson is doing. FSU might think they'll be able to do and to get some type of summary judgment based on the validity of the grant of rights. As a former member, once you announce, maybe that's what it's based on. I don't know.
Well,
but I haven't seen anybody tamping down the announcement rumors. There's almost an expectation that there'll be an announcement this summer. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, take Florida State out of it for a moment and think about Clemson. I mean,
yes, sir.
I think it's, in my impression is, I think it's real obvious that Clemson is not going to declare that they're withdrawing from the conference. They're trying to get a judgment, right? Why would they at this point? Why would they open up another avenue of attack from the ACC? Why they think they're hoping they get a judgment. They're hoping that ACC will negotiate because of fear of that possible judgment going to ACC. Clemson saying that they're filing a notice of withdrawal doesn't benefit Clemson at all. So I don't think Clemson's going to do it. And again, I don't know the benefits of Florida State doing it. I don't see how it puts pressure on the ACC. I think it only, again, we'll find out. I see that you sent me a date, but we'll find out if Florida State keeps getting paid by the ACC.
Well, that date was I was listening to something yesterday, and they were saying that the ACC revenue payments, I think, are due June 11th. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's just the increased chatter you're hearing behind the scenes of all this movement and where people are going to line up. There's just increased chatter in the FSU fan base. Mm-hmm. That something's coming, and there's no pushback on anything. In the past, when theories would get a little, I guess I'll use that phrase again, over their skis in the FSU fan base, the insiders are quick to put it down. No, we're way too far ahead of ourselves. We're not even close to being there. No. And nobody does it right now. So I don't know if that's pressure that's being applied to the ACC, because the ACC, I know this sounds stupid, but if people knew what I was talking about, they'd realize it's not. They monitor FSU message boards and X chatter and so on. So sometimes things are put out there just to get a rise out of them, a little bit of drama, just a little bit of poking the bear, or maybe to try to get them to move. You know, Clemson is really looking for a judgment on this. But like as you have insinuated, or you properly suggested, that they're trying to get the ACC to settle now. Let's not wait 6 months to a year. Let's settle now. Do you really want to let a judgment go on record? Do you really want a South Carolina judge to rule on this in a month? Because basically it's in just over a month they're looking for a hearing. And so it's pressure. There's other conspiracy theories about things that have come out in some of the negotiations that I'm not going to go there. I'm not saying they're not true. It's just you would absolutely think I'm crazy.
Well,
and no, so but I have a hard time believing it. But it's not the insiders saying that.
JD, I get a lot of stuff, right?
Sure.
And I've gotten a lot of stuff from good Seminole people, right? And
sure.
They're passionate about their Seminoles. They want them to get out of the ACC, so I understand. Some of that stuff is just, I think, you know how I feel. Some of it is just people getting all ramped up about, and they're willing to believe anything, because why not? Because they're hoping that something happens here quick, and I don't know. I think some of it is sunshine pumping.
Well, if you read a lot of it today, and I don't know exactly what you're talking about, because there's some things, yes, it's not accurate, but there's other things that when you read it today, you're like, no, there's no way. Go back 6 months from now and read it, you'll be like, wow, okay, it happened. And there's been a lot of that. I don't know if you remember the whole thing that Clemson and FSU, this whole argument right here today, what Clemson is filing, what they're seeking in summary judgment, is the exact argument I presented to you back in January or February. I didn't present it very well, but it's the exact argument. It's the exact argument I posted on X to Doug Rohan, I think, back in January or February. He found it interesting, but he wasn't certain at the time. Mm-hmm. And it's ironic that FSU and Clemson are saying the same thing. Well, part of it is I've been debating these things for 2 to 3 years, so I'm pretty well versed in a lot of the things, but I didn't know what was in the ACC ESPN agreement. That started leaking out later. But there's just so much that's going on now that even then I think you thought I was a little crazy, but now this is the exact argument that they're making. So there's a lot going on. Sometimes Seminole fans, we come across as conspiracy theorists and we're a little bit far out there, but we've been lucky enough that some of our insiders give us that peek around the corner, as you say. And I'm sorry, I'm stealing your catchphrase.
That's fine.
And it sounds crazy to other folks. Go back 6 months from now and read it, and you're like, wow, okay. Or a year and read it. But yeah, I agree with you. But I'm not disagreeing with you that FSU is not about to make an announcement. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm on my similar quest like Matt Baker is. I'm trying to get somebody to deny it, and up to now nobody has. But yeah. I'm not worried about being right. I want to be correct. Does that make sense?
Yep. And I think what happens in Pickens County is going to have an effect on what Florida State is thinking, right? I mean, let's say there is a hearing in Pickens County, and let's say it's on July 12th at the latest. And let's say people kind of read in the room and what happens if we're able to, if there's a live stream, we're going to live stream it, right? And let's say it kind of maybe becomes apparent that the judge is probably most likely possibly going to rule in favor of the summary judgment in favor of Clemson, and that it's not, if they leave the conference, they can have their rights with them. Well, then is Florida State going to file a notice of withdrawal without? I mean, I think Florida State would hit the pause button again. I think filing the notice of withdrawal before knowing when and if you're going to get your media rights before 2036, that might be like a last desperate move. I don't think it's a. I don't know. Again, no one has been able to tell me the benefits of doing it. So I think, Florida State is probably going to wait. I think they're going to wait anyways. But for people who believe that it could be June 1st, June 30th, well, why wouldn't Florida State wait to see what happens in Pickens County in July? That'd be my question.
Yeah, I'm not certain they are. The reason people suggest June 30th is there was a belief that all three new members would become members July 1st. Well, actually, only one of them becomes a member July 1st. The other two become members, August 2nd, I think. So it's been an understanding that the ACC is going to attempt to stall, and if they can get their conference makeup in such a way to prevent the composition clause from being enacted, then that's their goal because there's strength there. Mm-hmm. So if the ACC, I don't think there's necessarily one play here. I think the choice is a quick settlement. So your FSU contact purposely contacted all of you, and you would talk about it. Yeah. It's getting out there in the social media, and it's been talked about through the FSU fan base. You're getting more and more popular. So that's one way. There's the summary judgment. There's other things. There's rumors that ESPN is really pressuring the ACC to let's move this along. I've heard that in multiple places. I've heard other things. I'm not going to go into it, but it's little things just realignment, period. So I don't think there's necessarily one thing in play. I do believe that if the ACC is like the toddler standing over in the corner with their fingers in their ears, not listening to anybody, and they're just going to try their damnedest to stall this out 3 or 4 years, yes, before the membership gets to above the number, I think the composition clause will be used as a strategy, and FSU and Clemson might announce. I don't think that's the desire, unless that's what ESPN wants. But that gets into conspiracy theory, collaboration between the networks and the universities. You understand? Mm-hmm. There's things that we don't know. There's people that say things, but I don't know for certain. And but yeah, I think there's a lot of things at play that are potentials. The desired result for everybody, ACC, come to the table, let's make a deal and let's end this. That's the desired result. That's what everybody's trying to accomplish right now. But until that happens, yes, the legal cases move forward, everything else moves forward. And I don't think there's really I don't think anybody could disagree with that. But I do not believe FSU and Clemson will allow the ACC to hold them hostage for multiple years. They're not going to do that. They'll take their chances. Yeah. Why would you? Yeah. What if Clemson's, and I believe you when I think Clemson has a spot with or an opportunity with the B1G, with the Big Ten. That may not be the case 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. Can't let this drag out 2 years. Yeah. Both schools have every intention of announcing this summer, and I believe that, and they're trying to make it happen. Got it. That's my opinion.
All right, man. Beautiful,
Thank you, sir. JD. I appreciate the time.
Thank you for calling, sir. Call again. Mr. PATC Seminole, JD.
Have a great afternoon, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Kerry Gold knows. Do your part, peeps, and smash that like button. It's free. Thank you, Kerry Gold knows. Thank you for your incredible generosity, helping us keep the lights on here, making sure we can do this every single day throughout the week. Kerry Gold knows. It's the end of the week and the end of an incredible month. College football has changed. Direct revenue sharing from the schools to the players. We don't know exactly what it's still going to look like. We don't know if Title IX is going to be implicated in all this. We don't know if it's going to protect them from future lawsuits. We don't know if Congress is going to codify. We don't know anything. We know big things happen, but we still don't know what it's going to look like. But we kind of do know what 2024 is going to look like. First year of the college football expanded playoffs, a democratization, and increased access to the playoffs. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I think the college football regular season is going to be worth more. I know other people think it's not, but I think it is. I think if you've got 2 losses and you're going in the first week of November, you can still dream of getting in the playoffs. I think this whole thing is absolutely going to be the most fascinating college football season in my lifetime. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the cheese have slipped off my cracker. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But I think it's going to be fantastic. Please, if you're new to the channel or if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe, open up, turn on those notifications, smash the like button if you've liked our content today. I want to thank the great donations that have come in, the incredible chat, the chat room, and the great phone calls throughout the show. There is a chance we could come on live again tonight with more breaking news. Today we went through all 18 pages of the court case in Pickens County. Clemson has filed a summary motion. They want a ruling. They want it on their first cause in their amended complaint. They want a ruling on the grant of rights. Clemson is saying, if we leave the conference, our content is not necessary for ESPN and the ACC to fulfill each other's obligations to each other. Therefore, we should be able to take our media rights with them. Clemson wants a hearing on or before July 12th, and they want a partial summary resolution, decision, judgment. Holy smokes. Clemson has picked up the pace. They're rushing the bid. Does this get the ACC to the negotiation table? Does the ACC want to find out what is decided in Pickens County, South Carolina? We shall see. We shall see. Thank you for joining us today, May 31st, an end of an incredible week, an end of an incredible month in the month of May 2024. Thank you for being with us throughout the whole month. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, 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 you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.